On today's episode, Connor Bedard breaks out of his scoring drought.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a reminder off the top, as always, to please go and jump in the comment section down below. Mailbag Monday is right around the corner, so be sure to drop your Blackhawks-related questions in the comment section. Go and hit that like button, and make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. 100% free, will not cost you anything, and really does help me out tremendously. And I also got to let you all know that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. If you're not already a member, go and check out FanDuel.com right now to have a chance to win $150 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet cashes with America's #1 sportsbook. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Hope everyone out there had themselves a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know it's been a little bit of a wonky schedule this week due to the holidays, but definitely wanted to be sure to talk about what's been going down in the last couple of Blackhawks games here on Wednesday and Black Friday. Yesterday against the Minnesota Wild, I did post a post-game crossover with Seth Topal from Locked On Wild as we got together for a fun little chat yesterday afternoon following the Blackhawks' disappointing 2-0 blown lead. Kind of just a weird finish to that game. The officiating was less than ideal. A couple of painstaking goals for the Blackhawks winds up being the difference. They're unable to pick up back-to-back victories for the second time here in the month of November and finish the month with a 5-6-1 record in 12 games. But to kick things off on the show here today, undoubtedly what I have to get to first is Connor Bedard finally putting his dry spell to a halt. We saw him snap his 12-game goal drought in the Blackhawks' 6-2 massive offensive output victory over the Dallas Stars. First time this year in which the Blackhawks have potted 6 goals. And boy, did it feel good to see Connor Bedard finally find the back of the net. A beautiful snipe to put it past Stars goaltender Casey DeSmith. And you saw Bedard look up to the heavens, looking up to the rafters, being like, oh my gosh, finally. Had to feel so good for the kid with all the criticism that's been thrown his direction during that 1-month goal drought where he just couldn't find the bright side of a barn. Nothing was seemingly going in for him. Only right that it was a highlight reel type of goal out of 98 to end this skid of his. And then for him to follow that up and have the performance that he did on Friday afternoon against the Minnesota Wild. I know it came in a 3-2 loss for the Blackhawks, but it felt like Bedard finally is back playing with confidence for the first time in a long while. And I think if we've learned anything about Connor Bedard during his recent skid, it's that confidence is key, because you could tell his stretch of not finding the back of the net was really starting to weigh on him. Some of his decisions out there on the ice, his lack of aggressiveness. I mean, going back-to-back games without a shot on goal for the first time in the NHL. I also do think that was part of who he was playing with, but just so nice to see him back with his swagger, back on top of his game. And he was one of the best players, not only for the Blackhawks, but on either side in that game on Friday afternoon. We saw a numerous amount of special plays out of Connor Bedard, looking like the kid that we saw many times last year during his rookie campaign. Beautiful stick handling to put baby Foligno in a blender there. I'm wondering if Nick is going to be throwing him some post-game messages about what he was trying to do there defensively. Great play by Bedard to help work the puck over to the left dot on the man advantage. That led to Ryan Donato's second goal of the game, giving Connor Bedard points in back-to-back outings. Also led the Blackhawks with 4 shots on goal and 7 shot attempts. Was up over 21 minutes for the game. And again, he just looked like the kid that we had saw so many times last year and just was making special plays that very few can make on this Blackhawks team. There was a beautiful behind-the-back play he had to set up Wyatt Kaiser for a look at his first NHL goal. But again, altogether, just so good seeing Connor Bedard do his thing out there once again, playing with confidence. And I have a feeling he's going to go on a real nice stretch here moving forward now that he's finally got things going in the proper direction once again. But not only was it nice to see Connor Bedard end his recent skid and help out the Blackhawks offensively in their last couple of games here during the holidays, but Blackhawks also got some really good performances in their last two games from Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall, of course, with the hat trick to lift the Blackhawks offensively over the Stars, his first hat trick in over 10 years. Real slow start to the year for Taylor Hall, someone who I've criticized numerous times. All three of those players, quite honestly, have received heavy criticism from me for their lack of consistency early on in the year, but love to see Taylor Hall have that type of performance. And he even mentioned after the game that he feels like he's starting to get some extra pop back in his skating and is starting to get some confidence back of his own, which is great to see. That's exactly what we need out of number 71, especially if he's going to be playing on the top line with Connor Bedard like he and Philip Kurashev are right now. Tyler Bertuzzi, in that win against the Stars, I also thought he had one of his best games, if not his best game, as a member of the Blackhawks. Real aggressive play on the forecheck, wound up picking up 2 assists, and then also tallied the primary apple on Ryan Donato's opening goal yesterday against the Wild. So 3 points in the last 2 games for Tyler Bertuzzi. Blackhawks need more efforts like that out of number 59. And then Teuvo Teravainen was held off the stat sheet yesterday against Minnesota, but did score a goal against the Stars. That now gives him 3 points in his last 5 games. And I don't think that it's a coincidence, Blackhawks fans, that Connor Bedard is starting to get things going once again when Taylor Hall, Teuvo Teravainen, and Tyler Bertuzzi are starting to play some of their better hockey early on here in the 2024-2025 campaign. Nice to see this Blackhawks offense seem a little bit more capable than they've been for the entire month of November in the last 2, even though they only found the back of the net twice against Minnesota, with both goals coming against Ryan Donato. That's the best defensive team in the entire NHL right now, and the second best team in terms of points percentage. And the Blackhawks went toe-to-toe with them and quite honestly deserved a better result than they got. 2 fluky goals, both from Jared Spurgeon on his birthday, because, of course, sadly wound up making the difference. Don't think the officiating down the stretch helped the Blackhawks either. Unfortunate that they weren't able to keep the momentum going that they established on Wednesday at the UC against Dallas. But if they do play more types of games like that, with the offense starting to come alive a little bit, Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Hall, Tyler Bertuzzi, and of course, 98 Connor Bedard, I have some hopes that we're going to get some more consistent offensive performances out of this Blackhawks forward group, which is much needed considering what they've been able to do defensively and in between the pipes. All right, there are my thoughts on Connor Bedard putting an end to his skid, starting to play with confidence once again. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, don't go anywhere because I'll get into the latest injury updates that we have on goaltender Laurent Brossoit. But first, I got to talk to you all about a new sponsor here for the Locked On Podcast Network, which is Built Rewards. And listen up, renters, I'm talking to you specifically. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. And that's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. It's as simple as that. And you can use points towards a dream vacation or toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. So go earn points right now by paying rent when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. Again, that's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNHL. And make sure to use that URL so they know we sent you and you can start earning points today with Built Rewards. I also got to talk to you all real quick about Game Time. Hockey season, of course, has officially taken over, and it feels so good to get back down to the United Center. And I'm sure many of you Blackhawks fans who have yet to return to the UC and are listening to this or watching this right now feel the exact same way that I did, and that's why I got to talk to you all about Game Time. And Game Time has created a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events, not just hockey games, even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I personally have used Game Time for a long time, since I was in high school. Whether I'm going to see the Blackhawks, going to see the Cubs, I still use it to this day because it's the cheapest, fastest, and easiest way for you to purchase your tickets. Plus, I also love how they provide views from every seat in the house, so you know exactly what to expect before you arrive and before you make your purchase. I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app, and when you do, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first purchase. Again, that's download the Game Time app, create an account, and the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off when you want to go see a Blackhawks game at the United Center. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. Now for your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast so that you can become a fantasy hockey expert over your league mates by getting daily tips from Steal and Flip. And you can easily find the link to Locked On Fantasy Hockey down in the description of this video, or you can also search on YouTube and wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 2, I did recently talk about how if Laurent Brossoit, who's of course yet to suit up for the Blackhawks so far this season, I talked about how if he continues to miss time, and Arvid Soderblom, who's of course had to serve as the backup, has done a marvelous job at that so far this year. Truly one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, even though he has had a relatively small sample size. Peter Mrazek has been leaned on heavily, but should Arvid Soderblom make 4 more appearances before Laurent Brossoit is able to return, that would mean Soderblom would no longer be waiver exempt, and the Blackhawks would have to risk losing him for nothing in return should they have to send him back to the Rockford IceHogs of the AHL. And unfortunately, Blackhawks fans, it looks like this scenario just got a little bit more real, as prior to puck drop yesterday in Minnesota, Blackhawks head coach Luke Richardson spoke with the media and gave us a little bit of an update on Brossoit, and it was not the update that we were looking to hear, as Brossoit unfortunately underwent another procedure on his knee, the same knee where he had a torn MCL that originally put him on a 5 to 7 week timeline. Thought he was going to be healthy right around opening night, if not then, maybe a week or 2 later at the absolute max, but there's been no progression out of Laurent Brossoit. We haven't even seen him practice. He's mostly been held to gym sessions during his recovery, and now we get this update that he's had to undergo another procedure on that knee and will be out for at least another 6 weeks. And quite honestly, it's probably even going to be longer than that, because that's just when he's going to be reevaluated again. So 6 consecutive weeks off the ice, 6 more weeks off the ice here at the very least for Laurent Brossoit. Could wind up missing another 2 months. And man, that is such a tough blow, especially for someone that was super high on Laurent Brossoit going into this year. It was my favorite signing that Kyle Davidson made in free agency. And in my Blackhawks bold predictions episode at the start of the year, I predicted that Laurent Brossoit was going to become the starter of this team. Well, unfortunately, now seems like we might not even see him until late January, early February, and that is probably going to get Arvid Soderblom at that 60 game played number. I mean, it would be unbelievable if he didn't play 4 more games by the time Laurent Brossoit is able to return. It's going to happen. He's going to reach that 60 game threshold, and then it's going to become a real interesting situation on the Blackhawks front office's hands. What do we do with Arvid Soderblom? Listen, if he was still the same goaltender that was putting up the numbers that he did last year and the year prior when he got his first little taste of NHL action, I don't think the Blackhawks would be worried about losing Arvid Soderblom for free via waivers, because unless someone was desperate, I don't think anyone was going to take a chance on him. And even then, I don't think the Blackhawks would feel too poor about it, considering they have Drew Commesso in the system, Adam Guyan, who's gotten off to a shaky start to his post-draft career. Hasn't been a great 2 years since being selected by the Blackhawks in the second round, but still long-term development process with these goaltenders, of course. And I mean, last year we thought Arvid Soderblom was going to be nothing. It's crazy how things can change in just a year's time for these netminders. But if they were to lose Soderblom last year, given they had those two other goalie prospects in the system, I don't think they'd really bat an eye at it. But now, considering what Soderblom's flashed, plus the price tag he signed on for, under $1 million for the rest of this year, and then will be a restricted free agent with team control, I certainly think that would be enticing to a couple of other NHL teams. And we've seen some goaltender moves going on across the NHL. Scott Wedgwood from the Nashville Predators just got traded to the Colorado Avalanche for Justus Annunen to try to help solve some of the issues that Nashville's had in net. You do wonder if the Blackhawks consider trading Arvid Soderblom. The thing about that, though, is they can't trade him until Laurent Brossoit probably is going to return, because they would need a goaltender back in that deal, and I just don't see the likelihood of that being super high. Who else would the Blackhawks use as Peter Mrazek's backup with both Soderblom traded and Laurent Brossoit out? They can't call up Drew Commesso from the Rockford Ice Hogs. I mean, they have done that this year, but on an emergency basis, they didn't have any plans to actually play him because it's been a little bit of a struggling start to his sophomore campaign down in the AHL as well. And then there's no other options really for this Blackhawks organization to serve as the number 2 goaltender. So while trading Arvid Soderblom might sound good on paper, I just don't think the Blackhawks can do that until they're ready for Laurent Brossoit to return. So I don't see that being very likely, but it is an interesting situation that Kyle Davidson and company is going to have on their hands, because Arvid Soderblom, losing him for nothing in waivers, which I think is decently likely should they do that whenever Laurent Brossoit is able to return. I do think the chances of him getting scooped up are pretty good, and the Blackhawks don't want to lose him for nothing. So I do wonder if sometime in early 2025, January or February, before the trade deadline, the Blackhawks consider trading Arvid Soderblom, but I just can't see it happening right now because it would leave such a gaping hole on the NHL roster in terms of who would be Peter Mrazek's backup. But there is the latest on goaltender Laurent Brossoit. An unfortunate update as he's going to miss at least another 6 weeks. But before I wrap things up on today's show, Blackhawks fans, make sure to stick around because I do still got to get into an update on AJ Spellacy and Ryder Rolston being traded to the Nashville Predators. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action in the second half of the regular season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I apologize if anyone happened to see that ray of spit shoot out of my mouth. New customers, right now, make sure to go and check out FanDuel.com because you'll have an opportunity to win $150 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app now gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So that when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go and check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you also happen to place your bets. And the Chicago Bears finally made somewhat of a correct decision. They fired Matt Eberflus. Thomas Brown is going to be taken over. I feel like there's no better time to be taking a chance on the Bears money line, even though their schedule isn't good moving forward. I think they're going to rally around the troops a little bit here. If you're feeling the same way that I do, make sure to go and check out Bears money line with FanDuel. And if you're not already a member, sign up because you'll have a chance to win $150 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Again, that's FanDuel.com, and use the promo code LOCKDOWNNHL in all caps to take advantage of a great deal and to never waste a hunch and to make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Football League. Segment 3, before I close things out here on today's episode, I did have a couple of quick prospect updates to get into. First, just prior to the Blackhawks game on Wednesday against the Dallas Stars, it was announced that forward Ryder Rolston had been traded to the Nashville Predators in exchange for future considerations. Rolston, who turned 23 on Halloween night, was acquired back in 2021 along with Josh Dickinson and a second-round pick as part of the Carl Soderberg trade, if you all remember him. And in the Blackhawks organization the last couple of years, Rolston never got an NHL call-up, but did appear in 68 AHL games, tallying 11 goals and 9 assists for 20 points, but was kind of on the fritz on the outside looking in early on for the Ice Hogs. This season, as he only appeared in 6 of their games early on here in the campaign. Wasn't getting much of an opportunity, and just considering the amount of forward prospects that have kind of gotten onto the scene this year, guys who are realistically close to a call-up like a Frank Nazar, Colton Dock, Landon Slaggert, and Cole Gutman. Ryder Rolston just kind of wasn't in that same conversation, and also there's just going to be more and more of these guys arriving onto the pro scene who the Blackhawks just quite honestly have higher hopes for than the 2021 fifth-round pick, or was he 2021? Yeah, 2019? Man, that's going to drive me crazy. I think he was a 2019 fifth-round selection of the Colorado Avalanche. Anyways, I did want to be sure to mention this real quick, even though the Blackhawks only received future considerations in return, even though Ryder Rolston didn't have the highest of hopes or upside here with the Blackhawks. I did want to be sure to talk about it and mention that I wish all the best for Ryder in the next stage of his career. Again, only turned 23 years old back in October, so I hope this fresh start bodes well for him, and I hope to see him get in NHL games one day down the road for the Nashville Predators, because Ryder was one of the first prospects that I ever got to interview here on Locked On Blackhawks, and quite honestly, I've interviewed a number of different guys here over the years, and I'm okay with any type of personality, right? I get the type of guys who want to come on here and shoot the shit a little bit and have a little bit of fun. I get guys who are also buttoned up a little bit and are just kind of not as eccentric. I completely understand that. Everyone has their own personality. Some guys are into it a little bit more than others. I'm never going to judge you one way or the other. I understand both sides of the coin there. But Ryder was someone who immediately came on and brought good vibes, had good energy, and you could just tell he enjoyed coming on the show. And I really appreciated him for that type of energy and for the opportunity and for taking the time to talk to a young kid at that point like myself. So definitely wishing Ryder Rolston all the best in the next step of his journey. Super, super grateful for the time that he gave me and just the positive mojo that he brought here on the show. Wishing Ryder all the best in the next step with the Predators. Also wanted to mention, though, that Blackhawks 2024 third-round pick AJ Spellacy has officially been invited to Team USA selection camp for this year's World Juniors. Love to see that, baby. And what a couple of last few months it's been for AJ Spellacy ever since being drafted by the Blackhawks. Of course, he went on to have a phenomenal preseason here, stuck around a lot longer than most prospects do. Some folks even thought he potentially had a shot at the Blackhawks opening night roster. I thought that was a little bit of a long shot, but definitely bodes well long-term for AJ Spellacy, especially with the type of play that he provides. I mean, big body, a lot of energy, high motor, physicality, can play in all three zones, someone who's been utilized on the penalty kill from what I've seen with the Windsor Spitfires so far in his junior career. So someone who I think, even though he is a younger guy, he's actually going to be eligible for the 2026 World Juniors as well, as he's not set to turn 19 years old until February. Even though he's going to be one of the younger 29 invites that I believe have received invitations to go to Team USA selection camp, a little bit of an outside chance for Spellacy to make it, but because of his diversity and how he can provide an impact in a lot of different areas than just the prototypical offensive-minded player here in the United States forward group, I do think that gives him a chance. But even if he doesn't wind up making this team, I would love to see him make it, don't get me wrong, but just what we've seen from AJ Spellacy since being drafted has been outstanding. Off to a really good start here with the Windsor Spitfires, who have been one of the better teams in the OHL. Liam Greentree, by the way. I know Sasha Boisvert looked good with North Dakota, but Liam Greentree has been one of the best players in the CHL for Windsor. I wonder who wanted to select him. Couldn't have been this Jack Bushman guy. Of course, it's going to be a long time before we ultimately find out who is the better player. But for AJ Spellacy to be providing the impact that he is for Windsor, to have the preseason and training camp that he did for the Blackhawks, and to now earn himself an invitation for Team USA at this year's World Juniors, unbelievable stuff out of the 2024 third round pick. Wishing him the best, hoping he'll find a way to crack that team, because it would be awesome to watch AJ Spellacy donning the red, white, and blue during Christmas time in the World Juniors. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can check me out on X at Jack Bushman2, but be sure to go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account. That's at Talkin' Hockey. That way, you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your nights and the rest of your weekends. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.